This video will describe how to use the spray gun to apply glazes.
Hi, we're going to talk about using the spray gun. This is called a high volume low pressure gun, HVLP. What it means is we send in a lot of glaze under a very low pressure, and it atomizes the spray as it goes on. The air goes in through this end. We'll use a quick connect to send it through. This is the trigger. You squeeze it for the glaze and the air to come out of that hole. It's a gravity feed, which means that we'll put glaze into this color cup container and it flows down in and out the gun. This is better for glazed materials. One note is that because it's sitting in a vertical form like this, if you let it sit for a long time, sludge will accumulate. So once you've strained your glaze into this, you want to go ahead and use the spray gun right away. Don't leave it hanging for a long time while you go to get everything else ready. First thing to do when you're working with a gun like this is to be sure that it's been cleaned the last time. We're a school environment, so it may be that the last person didn't really understand how to clean it out. You want to be able to take the top off. This has a breather valve in the top to allow air to flow through. That needs to be clean and open. This is the color cup. These should easily go on and come off. This is a wrench, but it's only to be used if the last person tightened it too tight for you to get it off. Never use it to tighten. Everything should simply be hand tight. So this is the outside part of the nozzle. The way that you want to do the check of the cleanliness of this is to hold it up to the light. You can see a big hole in the middle and 5 holes on either side. And here is the inner nozzle. And I just undo that, and I'm going to look right into this opening, and I'm going to see whether glaze has accumulated there and been left and it's unclean. If it's not clean, I'm going to go ahead and run water through, wash it out. It's really important to pull the trigger back as I hand tighten this on. Pulling trigger back pulls the needle back, which allows me to get this cap on snugly. If one of the holes here was clogged up, I would take one of our little wire twist ties that has a wire stem, and I would run it through to open up those little holes. I tighten this back on, and the positioning of this outer cap is really important. These two fins on this side of the outer cap have air that comes out of those fins. The normal configuration of the spray is to come out as a round cone. It extends out. If I want to flatten it so it becomes a fan, so that it's broad this way but flat that way, like you've seen them spray painting cars, I allow air to go through these side vents, and that's controlled with this control on the side. This control has a large end of the triangle and a small end of the triangle. If I turn it counterclockwise to the large end of this triangle, it means that there's more air coming out of the side, and it's squishing the fan of air. This control is for the liquid. You almost never need to open or close that, but that is for the glaze liquid coming out. Generally, these adjustments will be just fine for when you go ahead to start working. If you run into a question on that, check with your instructor. Hand tighten that down. That's plenty tight. It won't leak glaze. And now I'm going to go over using this strainer that hangs up right under this shelf above the slips so that I don't get any clogs in the glaze. You want to be sure to stir your glaze really well. Pour the glaze through the strainer so that you'll capture any of the chunks that might be left in the glaze, and they then won't clog up the gun. Be sure to wash up this bucket and the strainer. Fill the fill the color cup only about 2/3 to 3/4 full. You want an airspace above. Put the lid on the top of the color cup, and now you can hang it on this hanger, this C-clamp hanger, so that it will suspend and hold the glaze into place. This is the quick release. This brass sleeve goes on to the end of the air and slides into place and is released, and that quickly locks the air pressure on. I pull the sleeve back to release it, pull the sleeve back to put it on. Now this is really important safety equipment that you need. You need to first listen to hear that the spray booth is operating. It should operate all the time, and you should be able to hear an airflow. If not, check with your instructor. This is a paper dust mask. Every student should have one of these. First thing to do is to crimp the metal on, or I should note first that this is an N95 dust mask. This is appropriate for using with our glazes. I crimp the metal part so that it will hold snugly around my nose. The easiest way to then put this on is to put it on my face first, and then take the top rubber band across, and then the bottom rubber band across. The last thing that we'll need is to put these safety glasses on. As I'm spraying, if I was to get any flakes back, I don't want them to fly into my eyes. The first thing I'm going to do is to spray this and spray again. I'm going to test out the spray gun, and I'm going to do it to this side. And what I want to find out is, do I have an adequate flow? I'm going to pull the trigger, and you see how I'm getting a nice fan of glaze, and I'm getting a nice even distribution. Common mistake is to only pull the needle back enough to get air, and there's no flow of glaze. Pull it back really tightly, and you can practice there. When I'm working with the spray gun, I want to be able to move so I don't accumulate too much glaze in any one spot that would create a run. This is staying too long in one spot. You see how the glaze starts to run. Too long in one spot, glaze starts to run. I want to get it so I get an even coat but no runs. I've already done the interior of this pitcher. I'm using Falls Creek Chino, and I put it on the center of this banding wheel, and I'm going to start the gun before I bring it up to the side, and I'm going to turn the banding wheel at a moderate pace, not real fast, not real slow. I stay in one spot with my gun, and the piece will turn. That gives me one coat. That gives me one coat. It's best to work in bands, not to move up and down, but work in one band till you get one coat. My rule of thumb is that 4 coats sprayed equals 1 coat dipped. So I've done 1. That's 2. And notice how when I'm doing it, it's moist as I come down, but I'm not staying in any one spot. This will be 3. I want to make one note. The inside of this handle is shadowed by the spray. So I'm spraying on the outside, but I'm not catching the inside. That may end up being thin, and so I'm going to intentionally stop and just spray and spray to get that interior. Now I'm going to do the 4th, and this is my final coat. And if I wanted to overlap, I could on that. But I'm essentially finished with that. I'm going to let the glaze dry while I go ahead and reverse the process of this and do the cleanup on it. So we'll take the glaze back, pour it into the proper color. cup out. The lid. Pull the needle back. Pull out the outer cup or outer cap. Pull out the inner cap and run glaze through this. Pull the needle back. Run the inner cap. Run the outer cap. Just hand tighten, no wrenches. And now I'm done. And I can return this to the spray can.
Now I'm going to apply a second layer of glaze.
I generally will start the wheel turning first, test out my spray that is working on the side, and now I'll spray the glaze on the top. I'm layering the glaze, and one of the nice things about using a spray gun is the ability to feather out the glaze, meaning that down towards the base, I'm not going to put as much of this overlapping glaze. I want to get a variance in the color of the glaze by doing slightly different thicknesses. So I'm putting more towards the top. I'm mindful of when it's going by. I don't want to stay in one spot too long because I'll tend to get run. I'm giving it a moment in between for the glaze to go from shiny to matte, and then I go and I spray my next layer. When you're finished, let your piece dry, pick it up, be sure to wash the top of the banding wheel, but just leave the newspaper in place. That's just fine. We will spray for several weeks with the same spray layer.